Station 51, engine 27, engine 32, truck 105.
You're listening to The Fire Break with Steve Wolf. Welcome back to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, The Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire, developing innovative technology for getting a hold of fires, because that's pretty damn important now. But what about the people who fight the fires? Right? There's no diesel tank on them other than something we call sleep. And first responders have a hard time with sleep because, one, we got a lot of adrenaline in our bodies. Two, we work weird schedules, 24 on, 48 off, or 72 off. Hopefully 72, not 48, as James told us in that episode. But how do we get better sleep, and how do we get a more restful sleep when we want it, not just when our bodies will yield to it? I have got Elizabeth Grojean with us today, and Elizabeth is with Baloo Living, and she has got some technology, that we could call it that, for helping people get a better sleep. Welcome to the Fire Break. How are you, Elizabeth?
Hi, Steve. I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So tell me what the problem is that you're trying to solve and how you're going about it.
Yes, Baloo Living is known as being a company that makes weighted blankets. And when I first tried one, I was fascinated by the experience. It's really an experience product. So we can't deliver the experience of this today. We can talk all about it and the science of it. But it really was a surprising experience that I had when I first tried one, because I found myself going into this deep sleep in the middle of the day unexpectedly, and sort of surrendering to this very deep level of relaxation I hadn't expected by using a weighted blanket. And they've become much more popular since then. This was around 2017. I think a lot of people have heard of weighted blankets, kind of get it, but we can talk more about the specifics of actually what mechanisms are triggered in the body when you use deep pressure touch on the body, and what's happening, and how it can really support going to sleep faster and getting deeper, higher quality sleep.
Well, I noticed this phenomena maybe 20 years ago when I was getting a tooth filled at the dentist's office, and they had to do the X-rays, and they put this lead apron on me.
Yeah.
And when they came back in after the X-rays, I said, "Can you just leave it on? It feels so good." And I found it like soothing and relaxing. And I actually ordered a lead apron from one of the companies that made it, because I found it so
So you're like,
soothing and relaxing. This was before the concept of the weighted blanket existed as something that you could buy at retail. But my body just said, this feels relaxing. So
it
now
feels
it's a thing, right? Now you can go into stores or online and you can order weighted blankets, and they
def-
make a huge difference in the quality of your sleep. They have for me. I've been using one for about 7 years consistently now. And
awesome. Well, they were originally being used by occupational therapists because that connection was made for people with sensory processing disorder, or autism, ADD, or ADHD, and even PTSD, because there is a trigger in the body that feels this sense of safety and calm through, and I always get this word wrong, sensory neuroprocessors or something like that, in the body. And so they stimulate the increase of serotonin, which is the natural feel-good hormone. And serotonin naturally converts to melatonin, which is why you get that feeling that, oh, okay, and you slip into sleep. And everyone thinks melatonin makes you sleepy. It's not like a sleeping pill. It's the cue. It's like the circadian rhythm cue that tells your body, okay, it's time to sleep. So that's a natural process in the body. And then also they've measured through hundreds of scientific studies, not specifically on weighted blankets, but deep pressure touch, that there's a natural decrease in serotonin, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, of course.
okay.
And so that's why you can put one on and feel almost like an automatic biological response to being more relaxed, and then also being able to go to sleep.
And how is it that the response is so fast?
I don't know the details of that, but I have experienced it myself, and
Like
it's
almost
kind of
instantly.
surprising.
Like you
Right.
pull a heavy blanket over you and you feel that weight, and right away, 30% of your stress disappears in the first minute.
It's like when you get hugged by someone you love, it's like instant, or when you swaddle a baby and they feel safe,
Right.
that fight or flight response can turn off.
It's really cool. It's really cool. So how did you get into the weighted blanket space?
My story was sort of a meandering story, but I had been in marketing and startup in New York for about a decade, I mean, and took a sabbatical to Bali because I was feeling that I was approaching life in a way that wasn't really bringing me satisfaction. It seemed to be checking all the boxes, but something was missing. And so while I was on sabbatical in Bali, I love that it's on the other side of the world because you're far away from the constant bombardment of ads and messaging and culture that we live in, and stimulation, really. Reconnected back to the earth, just living simply. I had some savings, so I was giving myself some time and space to explore. And I started to investigate starting a product business. And so it was coming at it from both sides, which was identifying the opportunity by noticing the keywords and the search volume on Google and Amazon for these things called weighted blankets, and getting excited about the opportunity I saw because there was a gap in the market in terms of quality being offered and high quality breathable materials. It was a lot of polyester and a lot of plastic bead filling at the time. And then I tried a sample of a weighted blanket, and I had this nap that I mentioned and described, and it was actually a really moving experience for me because it was so profoundly relaxing and surprising. And I wanted to share this with people who live in a different pace of life, live in the West and can't get away and can't, have the luxury to time their life to the sunset and sunrise.
Right.
But to
Edison
do
ruined it for us, didn't he?
yes, all of our advances are also like our steps backwards.
Yeah.
But to do it in a way that was very much respectful of sort of the personal experience and the body's wisdom. Actually, when you give it what it needs, its ability to calibrate and sort of find its own equilibrium again when it's supported. So that's a long answer. It was my personal journey that led me to discovering one, and then seeing that this was a really much needed product. Now there are very many competitors. It's a completely saturated market, but I think we're still doing something unique and different in terms of our product quality and our ethos and the way that we operate as a business. And so one of those things that we did was the scientific study recently, because there is a dearth of research on weighted blankets actually measuring their effectiveness. There's a lot of qualitative data and a lot of testimonial data of people saying this really helps me, but we wanted to measure and see how and why. And a lot of those answers have been provided through the things we talked about, like with the deep pressure touch. But we did a study of our own just to see how the impact was really, affecting people's lives. And so we have some results to share from that too, which I feel like I've been talking
Yeah,
on
tell me about that.
breath, but so what we got back was 78% of participants said that the blanket had a positive effect on their sleep quality. And sleep efficiency increased to 92%. So that's the ratio of times that you wake up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep or go to the bathroom or whatever. So being able to sleep in a long, uninterrupted chunk of time. Deep sleep duration increased by 10%. And sleep onset latency, time to fall asleep, improved by 27%. And then the last metric is feeling of physical and emotional readiness to start the day, improved by 10%.
So all across the board.
Across the board. Yeah.
I don't know if I could improve my time to sleep.
You're good.
I could
You're
reduce it from 3 breaths, maybe to 2 breaths. But when I hit the
Did you
pillow, I'm
training?
gone. It's instant. Yeah.
Did you train yourself to be able to go to sleep so fast?
I did actually in my late 20s, which I won't say how long ago it was, but it was a while. I was playing with a machine that had headphones, and I'll call them iPhones, but they were strobes, little red strobes, and it would create frequencies that would, entrain the brain into the rhythms that are normally present during sleep. And
I mean,
and it
it's a
turns
nice,
out that, going to sleep is like doing push-ups or anything else. Like if you study it and you practice it, you actually get better at it. And considering how important sleep is, it seems like most of us just leave it to chance as to whether we get a good night's sleep or not. And it has impact across every aspect of your life.
It does. I was mentioning to you when we were just making our connection before starting to record, I always refer to this book by Dr. Matthew Walker. So he's kind of the scientist on sleep. And he's got this book called Why We Sleep. I love it because he so simply spells out the dramatic effects on all aspects of health and life, and then also the science of why. And I was thinking about that a lot for first responders and firefighters, especially. Because the things that came to my mind from reading the book and also working in sleep are the body's ability to perform under stress. If you sleep less than 6 hours, especially, but they say under 8 hours, but especially 6 hours, then you are going to see 10 to 30% reduction in your physical time to physical exhaustion. The body can't cool itself as well. And then also muscle strength and aerobic output decreases on
Wow.
lower sleep. But then he also talks about it's not just sleep before your performance, it's also post-performance sleep, because that's when your body's in recovery. And so sleep is just so important both before and after physical exertion for performance and also for avoiding injury.
Wow. And not only avoiding injury to yourself, but avoiding injury to others.
Exactly.
Because in a lot of, intersection crashes, where ambulances or fire trucks crash into people because they ran a red light, they don't see brake marks because the people were actually had fallen asleep for a moment. Those
Right.
little micro naps that your brain forces on you if you don't give it what it needs. And they killed people,
Yeah.
or they're doing an IV, or they're administering meds, or doing things where you're supposed to be focused on doing these things properly. And how can you do them properly if your brain won't focus?
Well, and you were mentioning people working in these long shifts, right, where you're awake for such big windows of time. And he talks about a study that was done with pilots, because usually landing is like, your most accident prone time of a flight. And that's when a pilot's been awake for the longest. And so they studied and noticed that if you could intersperse power naps during the flight, you can have a really big impact in improving safety at the end of those windows of time. But the power nap needs to be almost a preventative power nap, not after you're already tired. So
Okay.
they kind of put the power nap in the manual for long haul flights, but it's more at the beginning third of the flight. It's not in the middle or the end of the flight. So you can
Interesting.
buy some time for those um, performance related sleep debt accidents.
And I imagine that in the aerospace industry, they have pretty good incentive to do the research.
Right. They
The
have
consequences are more severe there than for most others.
right.
I didn't get enough sleep. Okay, I wrote some bad copy or whatever. Okay, nobody dies. But if you're trying to land in a plane and you can't focus, you got issues.
Definitely. Definitely.
What other findings were in the book that were valuable to you?
He talks about one that is always with me because, so many people focus on this is also like weight loss is directly tied to sleep, because the hormones ghrelin and leptin influence directly whether you feel full, like you've had enough to eat, or if you still feel hungry and you're insatiated. So you'll eat more if you're sleep deprived. And yeah, one of them makes you feel really hungry and one of them makes you feel full. So there's a direct correlation to not getting enough sleep and being able to lose weight and keep weight off, which of course, vanity is important to all of us, but it has such big health impacts as well. There's one about being able to make and store memory. So if you're able to sleep after learning something new, your brain can hardwire or encode it, and then it's there for you the next day, versus if you didn't get some sleep after school or a lesson. Those are a couple. Definitely the impaired driving is a big one. They say being awake for 24 hours is as bad as driving drunk, which it's hard to believe that, as all of us have stayed awake for 24 hours and we feel fully functional, unless you're having that head dropping, unless it's hitting
Yeah,
you. But
right.
otherwise, you're fine because the adrenaline kicks in and you think you can push through it. But also the book talks about people who are sleep deprived don't know that they're sleep deprived. It's like when you've had too much to drink and you think you're fine. You don't know
Oh,
that you've
interesting.
had too much to drink. So it becomes really hard to self-assess when you're getting the impact of being tired.
But if you've had too much to drink, you could use a breathalyzer or something, and it'll tell you.
Yeah,
It'll give you
for your
hard
first
data. So
day.
what's the equivalent of the breathalyzer where you could self-assess? Is it a
I
cognitive test or a physical test, or something that you could normally do when you've had enough sleep that you can now no longer do?
I don't know that there is a test for that, but he, also, and I'm just like the Cliff Notes version of this book at this point. But another interesting point that brings up is that a lot of people think, oh no, I can go by on 6 hours of sleep, or I'm one of those people that can perform on less than the normal amount of sleep. And there is a gene for that. There are some people
What is
genetic.
that? The clock gene?
I don't know what it's called,
Okay.
but there is a gene that you can not see any negative detrimental impact if you get less than the recommended amount of sleep, but it is so rare. It's more likely that you'll be hit by lightning. And so often people think that they are like this, but it's not true. It's just that you can't assess the impact of the lack of sleep on yourself.
I see. Right. It's the same people who think they can win every time they go to Vegas.
Right.
Right.
I like to go to Vegas. I say I'm winning if I got free drinks and I had a good time.
That's a win, right? If you make it home, if your pilot had enough sleep and you get a safe landing, right? So that's interesting. What are some of the uh, ways in which people can use a weighted blanket in their routine to help them get to sleep, faster,
Mhm.
and maybe to sleep at times when they wouldn't normally be asleep? Because
Yeah.
if you're working a 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. shift and now you get off and the sun is up and you've got all the cues that it's time to be awake, only now you need to be asleep.
Yeah, a weighted blanket is like I like that you called it a technology. It's just a very simple technology. And you can just use it as part of your sleep stack, and it's a one-time purchase. It's just always with you. You can put it on. Um, I think as people who are trying to work different kinds of schedules know that light is really important to block out if you're trying to sleep. But
Just
adding a
let in more darkness, right?
absolutely black light as much as possible, like
What is the speed of dark?
Um, so it's just a tool that can really help having on hand wherever it is that you're going to be needing to get efficient sleep at an odd schedule. We make them in a variety of sizes. A lot of times people might get a little bit hesitant about which size or weight to buy for themselves. There's a rule of thumb that says 10% of your body weight, but that's kind of arbitrary, really. There is no right answer. I would just say that you can go too heavy because if people have back or joint pain, then sometimes being under that much weight for a while can start to irritate. Or if you're a side sleeper. So our heavier weight is the 20-pound blanket. And I would suggest that um, only for people who are really physically fit, they don't have back or joint pain, and they're not side sleepers. Or someone like you who already has experienced the weighted vest at the dentist, you like that sensation. It's good to go heavy, but our best seller is a 12-pound throw. It's kind of the Goldilocks. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're big, little, older, young. Like, it's just a really nice weight for most people. And then temperature is really important for sleep. So it's recommended that you're in a cool room. And that's kind of like going back to our, evolutionary period where it's cooler at night, the sun dips, and you need your body temperature to go down too. So we made our blankets cool and breathable. So they're not going to cause you to trap any kind of excess heat. And the weight's coming from glass microbeads, so they don't trap any heat. There's a lot of airflow through the blanket. So you can add it to your sheets or your bedding in there.
And how do you do a comparative analysis on the insulative properties of one versus another?
For brands and things, a lot of
No, I've got three blankets and I want to know which one's going to be coolest. Are you
um,
putting a heat source underneath and then measuring it at the top?
oh, I haven't done any testing on that. Our testing has been all anecdotal and personal experience, and women in menopause saying like this worked for me.
Okay. I was just curious because you were science oriented on the rest of it.
Yeah, I am not a science oriented individual. I'm like, yeah, my friend said it worked great, but definitely, we wanted to cover the science for those of us who are more looking for the data to back up their decision making.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not a big, it's not a life, well, it could be, yes, a life improving decision. It's not a life altering decision. If you don't like it, just don't use it. Give it away, right? If it's not
Absolutely.
for you, right?
Give it away, return it. We have free exchanges if you want to change your weight. We have easy returns. So it's pretty low risk when it comes to that.
Very, very interesting. Well, I'm glad that you had that experience in Bali, and that it led you on this path. Um, it's a very, very different experience, I imagine, spending time in Bali versus running a startup.
Yes, that is a very good
Yeah,
observation.
it's like diametrically opposite, right?
Completely altered since 2018. So I came back to the States, back to New York. I now have a toddler. So I'm a mom, I'm a business owner. Life is very different than it was when I, explored the idea of starting a business and kind of discovered this new product. So they're really great. I will mention for kids as well. Like my little boy uses one and he calls it his heavy blanket. And if we go anywhere, he'll ask me for it. And usually I forget to bring it because it's heavy.
Right.
But it really does help kids sleep too. And he's a hot sleeper. So
So
it's really something working well for kids.
when you think about swaddling someone, really that's synthetic weight, right?
Exactly.
You're creating artificial weight by compressing.
Yes. Compression therapy almost.
Very interesting. Wow. And your toddler is 2 now?
He's 3.5. So
Three and
close
a
to
half.
actually. He's almost
Okay.
a boy. He's not really a toddler for much longer, but
No.
um, you also had mentioned other ways to use the weighted blanket, and we did do another study. This wasn't one we commissioned, but we were part of it with the university graduate program at Angelo State. And they were looking at the effect of weighted blankets on anxiety in college students. And so
Oh,
in this
wow.
study, they had 40 and 40, so control group and experimental group. And they saw a statistically significant improvement in levels of anxiety in college kids who did use the weighted blanket, but they weren't using it at night. They were using it for 2 hours during the day,
Oh,
which is interesting. So I always joke, I'm like, well, I don't know if it's because of the weighted blanket or because they had to sit on the couch for 2 hours that they felt better.
right.
But there was an improvement. And so they are also a tool for anxiety. And anxiety and sleep can be closely intertwined. You know, when you're struggling to get sleep, it can make you feel anxious. And also being sleep deprived can increase anxiety because of the stress hormones associated. So there's a positive relationship there with weighted blankets.
So with regard to that college study, were the students sleeping, or were they simply using it as a
They were
tool of
using,
comfort?
yeah, like during the day as a tool for comfort or maybe while studying, something like that, passive during the day.
Okay. And
Mhm.
I've gone through several weighted blankets, and I find that for the discards, if you hang them like a curtain, they make an amazing sound absorber.
Oh,
Because in sound technology, this would be called a limp mass barrier, and the
okay.
idea is to hang something that is unable to maintain its shape, like a blanket or glass beads,
Yeah.
and to use that as a barrier. And then when sound waves hit it, they turn from sound waves into motion by moving the beads, moving the blanket, and then that absorbs that energy, and then there's no energy to get to the other side. So
And podcast recording, or are you in a rock band or other?
I'm sorry.
Are you making the sound barriers for podcast recording
Oh
or
yeah,
what?
yep. I use it to make a soundproof studio, and then
Mhm.
also if anyone happens to be building their own indoor pistol range in their home or basement,
Yeah,
and don't want to disturb the neighbors, you can
right.
put up those limp mass barriers that way.
Okay.
They're also used in pistol ranges to confine the noise.
Mm, okay.
So I mean, there you are in San Antonio. Oop, I lost your sound. Sorry.
Hello. There.
Oh, there you are. Okay,
Yeah.
I missed what you said.
Oh, I said that's something I'll let our customer service team know. They can tell people if if
Right.
they're inside their return window, use it for your pistol range.
There you go. It works well. Or put it on a window in front of to block a noisy street.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me about the success of the business. Has it gone the way you thought it would? What are
Oh
your
my
next struggles?
It's nothing like what I expected. I'll say this because when I started it, I thought it would be a small little side business, and it exploded overnight. We became the number one weighted blanket or gift to give according to the New York Magazine Strategist Gift Guide, and I have someone knock
Wow.
on the door. We were sold out in 2 days. It was wild because it was just me in the business, and we started getting shipments in. I would pre-sell them. They'd arrive. Oh no, I wasn't selling them. They would arrive and I would send an email to the waiting list and they would be sold out within 6 minutes. It was insanity. So it quickly became a real business. And now my sister and I work together. So she left her corporate job in sales in 2020 and came to work with me. And
Wow.
which is funny because my dad was like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?"
Don't work with family, right?
Right, exactly.
I work with my brother, so I
Oh,
get it.
great. Yeah, I think I knew, we both knew what we were getting into, and it's been really, really great. We have complementary skill sets, but we're still a small business because it's the two of us, and we have a very small team of four people full time, in addition to ourselves. We had extreme demand during COVID because people were at home and emphasizing their health. So things have softened a bit since COVID, and that's okay. Now we're more concerned with the trade war and what tariffs are going to mean for our supply
It's
chain.
just what I was about to ask you. Yeah. How are you impacted by that?
We do manufacture in China. We have an incredible factory we worked with there. I've been several times. We have a great relationship. They give me the best baby gifts. Like, I mean, it's amazing. However, I understand that there is a macroeconomic world trade climate that we have problems that we are trying to solve for, but it's having an impact on our business. So we have stock until June, and we are trying to figure out alternative sources for the holiday season. So
All
I
right.
will be here. We're not going away, but I will say that all of the problems that I thought I had in the business before have taken a backseat, and now this is the one that we're working on.
Right. That's what
That's,
you needed. More. That's what you needed. More new problems, right?
I mean, there is I don't, and it's not a quote, but like a great framing I've heard, which is like, if you think you have problems, just get a bigger problem, and then all your problems go away. Yeah,
Right. That's right. No,
so
that's
that's
true.
the frame.
Well, fascinating, work that you're doing. And I know I can just say from personal experience, that the weighted blanket makes an enormous difference on my sleep. So first responders, firefighters out there, if you want to try one, try it. It's free to try, right? It's if you don't like it, send it back. If
Yeah.
but all that you risk is making a huge improvement in your sleep. So Elizabeth, what's your website if folks want to get in touch with you?
Our website is balooliving.com. Baloo is like Baloo the bear from the Jungle Book. I loved him because he was the most kind of happy-go-lucky, no stress kind of guy.
Right.
It's spelled Baloo and then living.com. And we have a special offer for first responders
That's
that
nice of you.
we always have. If anyone ever reaches out to us and asks, we let them know the code is thank you 20, and that's good for 20% off all of our weighted blankets.
Oh, that's great. And thanks for taking care of that community so they can take care of you. Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining me on the fire break today.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
All right. Elizabeth Grojean with BalooLiving.com. Check out the weighted blanket. I'm not saying this, I have no connection with the company financially. I'm just telling you that from personal experience, this makes a huge difference and I recommend it. So there you are. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire, and we'll see you at the next one.